Uh-oh, somebody's taking an interest in my space early. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, good, good. Because my music just went off all of a sudden. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're starting early today. I had a very interesting topic. We're going to be kind of academic today, but I did have some really good information for you guys. For the last week, we've been discussing miseducation. Again, that was inspired by our brother Tariq Nasheed. He made a comment about miseducation. And I thought way back to one of our greatest icons, heroes, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. Carter dedicated his whole life to trying to fix this problem that Wani, Nikki, and I, and the whole team, the whole family is trying to, you know, stumble our way out of. Um, he dedicated his whole life to trying to fix this problem. And his conclusion was it was history. It is history, and we're being miseducated. Some scholars argue that Carter G. Woodson sacrificed his ability to get married and have children because he was just head over heels obsessed with fighting our way out of this box that we're in. A lot of our ancestors have dedicated, you know, their lives and to trying to figure out a solution. And some of our organizations were created to find a way out of this box, and it just depresses me to see our organizations get taken over by outsiders. But that's a whole nother space, whole nother time. So today we're going to address Aristotle. I'm an 80s baby, and when I was in high school and in college, the foundation for the PWI experience was based on Aristotle's poetics. Aristotle was the first genius, is what my teachers and professors would say, and he was the first multi genius. And I teach one section of ancient world history, and I noticed in our curriculum that they wanted me to refer to Aristotle as the father of logic. What I didn't put in the titles, they want me to refer to they refer to what's this motherfucker's name? Aristotle. Plato is the father of science or something. Like, it's just ridiculousness. So I find myself asking myself today, like, Aristotle, the father of logic. You don't know how fucking ridiculous that is. So we're gonna go to George M. James and look at George M. James's scholarship to see if Aristotle. We're gonna test this. We're gonna see if Aristotle was the father of logic, or was he an old lying ass secretary? I really mean this. But uh, before we start, Wanda, you want to ask him?
No, I'm just waiting to see how the conversation develops.
Okay, so we're going to go to George M. James. I'm going to page 38 of Stolen Legacy. Now, a little background on this book. I want to brag on George M. James's book. It was written a long time ago in, I think, 1930. I got an unorthodox type of book, but I'm guessing, I think it was 1930 something, 37. That sounds about right. The book I have is unorthodox. It's a reprint. It doesn't have the dates in it. But anyway, this book resurfaced in at the Atlanta University in the 80s. A professor introduced it to students at Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, and Spelman, and started a kind of like a pro-black movement. Unintentionally, they were just discovering, things in this book. This book has a whole bunch of it outlines of how a lot of things, it's literally stolen legacy, how math came from the Egyptians, and how a lot of things that we're told in school are just an outright fucking lie. So the question is, why are you lying? But back to the scholarship, we're going to look at page 38 of Stolen Legacy, and it says, quote, this George M. James says, quote, the so-called books of Aristotle deal with scientific knowledge, which was not in circulation among the Greeks. And consequently, it was impossible, as has already been stated, for him to have purchased them from so-called Greek philosophers. George M. James says, um, Basically, if I could sum this up, that Aristotle didn't create shit. Aristotle was a secretary. He was a secretary of Alexander. For the sake of the space, I'm gonna say the Great, but I don't think he was great at anything but murdering little boys. Um, Aristotle was Alexander the Great's secretary. So when Alexander the Great, I like vomit a little bit every time I say that. When Alexander the G um, went into Kemet,
Alexander of Macedonia.
that works. Doctor
Okay.
Alexander Macedonia. That's a great one. Dr. Walt Williams calls him Alexander the Greek.
Yeah, that works too.
Alexander the Greek. When he basically, as I've said several times before, when Alexander took over Kemet or Egypt, it was already weakened. Something in my mind said by tethers. It was weakened by mixed breed children. Basically, the Egyptians did not race mix. That was a big no no. Why? Because they wanted to keep their spiritual ancestry pure. The Egyptians allegedly had an ability to communicate in the halls of their fathers with spirits, with spirits from a long time ago. And a little interesting point for Wani. Wani, did you know that the Egyptians had God? It wasn't more than one God, but God in the world of the Kemites name was Ptah. And when you look at pictures that the Kemites drew of Ptah, guess what Ptah was? A Twa. Is that not interesting?
Mm.
I'm gonna put a.
What about Imhotep? He looks
Yeah, he did look small too, didn't he?
tiny.
Wow. But God Ptah was a little bitty batois with a little cap
Hmm.
on. So that's why I get
I'm
excited
gonna
when
look
we
him
talk.
up right now.
Okay, I get excited when Wani starts talking about batois because I don't know much about them. But I'm getting off topic. ADHD is kicking in. Let's talk some fucking business. When Egypt fell, it fell because Asian men, according to Doctor Chancellor Williams, came in to do work. Is an immigration issue, and when Asian men were working in Egypt, the pharaohs felt sorry for him, according to Dr. Chancellor Williams, and said every man needs a woman. Don't that sound like us helping everybody but ourselves? Help them having women, and in 200 years, according to Dr. Chancellor Williams, these Asian men had mixed breed children who formed their own communities and said and did not identify as black. They identified as Asian, and a civil war broke out and weakened the fourth cataract. So if you look up cataract rack there in this confusing ass fucking language we speak, there are different definitions of cataract. But the definition I want you to roll with is something that the definition that talks about like a cliff or a crevasse. It could be crevice. I like saying crevasse. I'm fancy. Well, the crevasse, the crevasse created a defensive position in Kemet. So Egypt was damn near impenetrable just by off of its positioning alone. But when those Asians start raising hell and saying, "I'm not them," I'm not an N word. Alexander the Greeks second in command, a black man who spoke Egyptian named Cletus Nagra. Cletus Nagra. That means Cletus. Um, informed Alexander, now's your chance. Chance to do what? Chance to steal knowledge. Now, y'all hear me and hear me well. The Egyptians would train and teach. They taught the whole world everything that we knew. I'm gonna say we because I'm pretty sure after the research I've done for my new book that I can prove that we're Egyptian. I'm almost there. Egypt wasn't just in Africa; it was all over. But or Kemetic, whatever you want to call it. Well, Cletus Nagra, when he led Alexander and his men to conquer Kemet because it was already weakened, it was our war there. Why? They wanted the knowledge of the mystery school system. The mystery school system was kept at the Library of Question Mark. Now, what I've read is there more than one, but one of the main ones was what we refer to as a Library Alexandria after Alexander's sorry ass. Well, once they got the information from the once it was conquered and they took over the Library of Alexandria, history has it, ladies and gentlemen, that Alexander told his secretary, a motherfucker named Aristotle, to go round up all the books and take them back to Europe, um, where they would be displayed. Now, when Aristotle got back to Europe, he named the books after himself. So he really was a secretary. And I'm gonna call him a goddamn liar because I think it's called the Poetics. He named after himself. And now our children are taught that he's the world's first multi-genius. When the first multi-genius, as Wani said earlier, was Imhotep. Dr. George M. James says, um, in order to write these texts, there are at least three books of lists. One said to be Aristotle's own classification of his writings, and naturally, it must be dated within the period of his own life, which was 384 to 322 BC. In this list, Aristotle told the world he's a goddamn liar. According to Dr. James, he told the world that he wrote the text on A, mathematics, physics, and theology, B, ethics, economics, and politics, and C, poetry, art, and rhetoric. Stop right there. Does anybody in here know or have heard of anybody who has wrote books on that wide a range of topics?
Nope.
Like I said, he's a lying ass
He
secretary.
really is.
Now, of course,
No, go ahead.
go ahead,
No, go
one.
ahead.
One, Dr. James says now, in order to write these texts, he must have received education and training in the subjects which they are written. Duh. We are told in history of the Greek philosophy that Socrates taught Plato and that Plato taught Aristotle, but there is no evidence that Socrates ever taught mathematics or economics or politics. It caught him in a lie. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. James says, consequently, it was impossible for him to teach Plato these subjects, and also impossible to teach Aristotle these subjects under the Egyptian mystery system, which was graded and which required proof of efficiency before promotion. Dr. James says, we are therefore unable to accept the claim of Aristotle had been the author of these books. He goddamn stole them, is what he did. And these the mystery system knowledge that was stolen is misunderstood. Is being used wrong, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, the world is as fucked up as it is. There's an esoteric group of people using knowledge that they don't understand. Now, there's something I want to say, but it will cancel me forever. I probably get fired off my job if I say it. I've shown Wani a while back, and showed Nikki. So I'm gonna try my best to elaborate on it. Hmm. These people, the group of people who were basically gypsies, ran into the vacuum created by Alexander the Greek and just start stealing shit. Because Alexander went through killing people in the Kemet, and it was already wounded by the Asians. Alexander and Cletus and their men fucking finished it off basically. So a group of gypsies, low lives, came running into Kemet and stole an identity. The identity is not the name you think it is. It's the name of the Asrael. Aset. Asrael was a people. It was a people of Aset, Asar, Ra, which is the radius of God, the light, God, and the Son. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. They didn't say Son, they said Ra. And Elohim. Elohim means God. So it was a people of the black sun. It was the black sons and daughters of God. That's what Asrael means. Um, a group of people stole the identity of the Asraelis. Who are the Asraelis? You, me. We're the sons and daughter. the black sons and daughters of God. But these people stole the idea. I mean, stole the identity and had access to the books. This group of people kept the name that the Jew, I mean, that the this is slipping up with this stuff. Kept the name that the Egyptians had for evil. If you want to know the Egyptian word for evil, raise your hand and I'll DM you some textual evidence. But because I'm not gonna say it, I don't want to get canceled like that. But it's an interesting story. Was Aristotle a father of logic? No. I'm gonna say that the creator is the father of logic. Let there be light. You know what? The creation of light is logic. Um, and I'm gonna go with Alexander was an old lying ass secretary. Any questions? Any
I
comments?
fully agree because all they do is write letters about how they went over to Egypt to get information. So they're not the originators of anything. They're just collecting information and using it in their way. The same thing that people do to us here in America, where they just come and get our music genres and then express them in a certain way or use what our intellectual um, our inventions and things like that, and then erase our name from it. And that is amazing. The two most important inventions to get us where we are today, the telephone and the light bulb. You would have thought that someone would have mentioned that when they were speaking about inventors, because um, Graham Bell would never have gotten the invention passed through if he didn't have Lewis Latimer to help him to make the phone, and or probably made it on his own because he had the blueprints and he had to present those in court for him to get the phone, because some other guys had a phone that they were trying to patent. So he's the reason it even got patented, let alone the fact that he created it. So it just goes to show you that, they're still doing the same thing, just appropriating people's things and then presenting it as their own.
Right. Now before I go to Highland, I want to let y'all know again that the information of our mystery school system is out there. I briefly attended Harvard University, and I spent a little bit more time at Georgetown. I didn't graduate from either one, but I noticed that both Harvard and Georgetown, at the Georgetown Law School, at the law library, they had a sacred book section, which was armed by a mysteriously young and preppy guard. Usually, guards have on police uniforms. This guard was Caucasian, in his late 20s, wore a bow tie. It's almost as if this guard was a member of a secret order or a secret society, but I'm going to leave that alone. At Harvard, we call these societies finishing clubs, but I'm going to leave that alone. Um, but I've always wondered back in the day, almost 20 years ago now, what books they had hiding back there. What I've been told through several sources is some of that mystery school stuff hides in there. If we could only get our hands on that mystery school stuff, the power we could unlock. Bobby Hammett talked a little bit about the white man experimenting for the last couple thousand years with mystery school knowledge, and that group, that religious group that I did not mention, use this attempt at this in their ceremonies. There's a saying in the Holy Bible that talks about the uh, members of a certain religion when they were doing a very sacred ceremony. If y'all remember this from church, they would all dress up in very sacred gowns of white. And you remember when the pastor was talking about they would tie a rope around the head priest, and the head priest would walk into a sacred area to have communion with a higher power. And he had a rope around his waist because if the higher power was not pleased with him, he would get struck down dead, and they couldn't go and get him. They would have to drag him out by the rope. That's some of that deep mystery school stuff. Well, our great scholar Bobby Hemmett. Um, talked a little bit more in depth about those ceremonies. And Bobby Hemmett argued that spiritually, you remember what I said earlier about the Egyptians did not race mix. The Egyptians um, had communion with their ancestors spiritually. And well, Bobby Hemmett said that the outsiders, the fucking invaders, the imposters, I have for the last couple thousand years have been trying to have communion to with the on the spirit realm to acquire information, and it won't work. They keep getting rejected. In fact, Bobby Hemmett said when they come out, if they survive it, they have stab wounds, deep stab wounds. If we could only get our hands on that information, Highland, talk to us, brother Highland.
Oh, was that me?
No, I said Highland. He had his hand up earlier. He probably stepped away. Go ahead, Omari.
Hi, thank you for hosting the space. I appreciate it. Really do appreciate it. I am a philosophy graduate from Humboldt State University. I spent a lot of time studying the ancient Greeks and Greek philosophy, and I never was the biggest fan of Aristotle, and for a variety of reasons. The main reason being which is that none of his stuff felt original. For example, the golden so-called golden mean that he's credited for, that golden mean can be, you can find that ideology and that particular perspective echoed throughout several notable philosophers, including Lao Tzu, Confucius, and the Buddha, which predate Aristotle by hundreds and hundreds of years. But Aristotle himself, he was a student of Plato, and Plato gives, if you read Plato, Plato gives all credit and reverence to Socrates, and that's who I always look to in terms of everything that anything redeeming about white culture in general and the Greek culture in particular. I kind of begin and end with Socrates, quite frankly, and which is kind of a
Well, Socrates.
go ahead.
No, I love it, brother. And thank you for your contribution. I want you to continue, but I want to quickly interject that Socrates. Do you know the description of
He was
Socrates?
short, bald, and
He was,
ugly, allegedly. Which I wonder if maybe he might have been darker skinned because they called him ugly, allegedly.
yes, he was
Yeah,
black.
you think so?
That
Yeah,
he had
the
here,
bust. He kind of looks like Red Fox. You like some of those
Oh
busts.
Lord,
He
right?
looks like Red Fox.
It's his the
don't do red
description of
like
his
that.
nose. The description of his nose, the Europeans identified it as pug, and you're right. They said it was ugly, but it was pugnacious.
Right,
I
Pugnacious.
right.
was like, that sounds like a black nose,
Well, that could very well be. I don't want to read into that because that just seems like sometimes it'd be too good to be true. If we can claim Socrates too, that's just that means
Well,
white
let
folks
me
got
work
they got
on that.
nothing. They got nothing
Well,
after
well,
that.
what I know about them is that it's not as black and white. After doing all these people's genetics, it is far,
Yeah,
far from them being a white society.
and and
It's
and
just not that way.
and what I wanted to specify particularly before we move on is that Socrates himself said several times that everything great and potent and wonderful that Athens in particular and that Greek got from their pilgrimages to Kemet to Egypt. Like Socrates himself,
Mhm.
he would say ad nauseum if you read the dialogues. And going back to what you said, Professor, yeah, Socrates never taught math. Socrates he didn't quote unquote teach. He just had quote unquote the Socratic method where he would just engage in questions and dialogues and they would circumvent various topics, but nothing ever in particular, like where he could be identified as a quote unquote political teacher. No, he just had a serious conversation about politics and the republic, but he didn't teach classes on politics and the republic as we would know it. So yeah, definitely, and certainly with respect to math, I can't remember him talking about anything, some sort of mathematical equations. The most you get is him talking about maybe atoms or monism or something like that, or particles. And then going back, and then one more thing, and then I'll land my plane. So much of what we know, what we contributed to other cultures, like logic, we know that there are prototypes embedded in Africa and particularly in Egypt. And I'm not just thinking about logic. I'm thinking also about yoga, like yoga. Certainly, I will say yoga was formalized in India, but if you look at certain statues of gods, in particular the god Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, you see
Hmm.
the god Thoth, who was depicted with the head of an ibis. You see statues of him sitting in what is called sukhasana, aka the simple sitting pose or the pleasant pose. It's basically you just sit cross-legged, but you sit with one knee stacked on top of your ankle, then and then vice versa. And you see these are statues that go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and that, for all intents and purposes, is the simple seating pose that we practice in yoga. But to the credit of the ancient Indians, who are also black, they were the first people that I will say they formalized the system of yoga through the Vedas and later on through the what we is known as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is the first formal text to specifically talk about the term yoga. So while I'll say that yes, certainly the practice, the simple postures may have been formulated in Egypt, and you also see them on the hieroglyphs. You see some of the standing poses and some of the positions of the ancient Kemetic people. They're almost like they're doing like yoga postures, and they're like a triangle pose here or a side pose there.
They are. They were
Yeah.
also doing, they had a full blown Olympics going on over there with all kinds of, referees and everything on the hieroglyphics. I wrote down the name of the hieroglyphics that has that. They were doing a lot of sports.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think a similar thing sort of happened with formal logic, whereas certainly people like Socrates, they knew full well who was really quote unquote had the real McCoy when it comes to mathematical observations. The Greeks, especially with their observations of the stars, they were very, very mathematically keen. That's how we know that from the way they built the pyramids. But in terms of like the formal logistical system, yeah, maybe that in terms of writing it down and doing all that in terms of like using like certain letters and alphabets, maybe that did formulate in Greece, but it certainly didn't start with Aristotle. I will say that. So again, the I will say that the foundation of it would start in Africa, logic, things like yoga, things like gymnastics, but
Mhm.
the maybe the fine-tuned formalizations will happen elsewhere, when people take what they learned from these greats and bring it back to their homelands. And I'll
May
land there.
I
Thank you.
insert something real quick?
Come on,
I'm going to
woman.
go ahead and throw Socrates under the bus.
Uh oh.
Yeah. It says that he considered pederasty as a superior form of love compared
Ugh.
to the love of a woman.
Yeah, and I gotta acknowledge the fact that the last thing this dude did with his waking life was take a shower with another dude.
Absolutely.
After he told his wife, he gave his wife like a pat on the back and say, "All right, they're there. Well, they're gonna kill me, so
Oh my
see ya."
goodness.
He said, "See ya." And then, hey, Credo, let's hop in the
Oh
shower.
my God.
So that's what he
Oh,
did. But
what were they doing over there? I mean, I
I don't
literally
know.
walked around with the historian and she was like, I don't know what the hell they were doing. I was like, you
Exactly.
got to tell me what they were doing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I will fully admit that when I was attending Humboldt County HSU, that's in Northern California. That's in real Northern California because San Francisco and Oakland is not Northern California. That's Central California. Northern California is Humboldt County. That's yeah, just under Oregon. But yeah, when I was there, I was totally like caught up in the whole sort of white leftist liberal democratic view of Socrates. Basically just short of deifying this dude, but I do acknowledge his insight. I won't speak on the whole pederasty thing. That's just what they just had a problem with that. A serious problem. But his insights on the morality and the ethics of stuff not pertaining to boy loving, that I can see some silver lining in. But going back to just Professor, I want to leave it with this. One
Huh?
way or another, let's say they do want to credit Aristotle with building logic, and white people want to say, yeah, that's right. Aristotle's the father of logic. Aristotle's the father of logic. My counter is that wait a minute, didn't y'all threaten to kill Aristotle like y'all killed Socrates? Like White people killed Socrates. They made him commit suicide, and they threatened to do the same thing to Aristotle. Aristotle died a criminal and a fugitive. So which is it? Is Aristotle like their boy, or was he the degenerate that the Athenian government accused him of being? Because towards the end of his life, he died in disgrace and exile. They threatened to kill him. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think Vonnie covered it yesterday when she said that everything that the Europeans do to us, they've done to each other. So they don't have a nice history with each other, but in the need to dominate us, they're feeding poison into our children's heads, to make our children think that everything that has value, everything that has intellectual prowess came from a male. And that's why they're trying to get me to fucking tell my kids that Aristotle was a father of logic. I did want to point out something since you brought up Socrates that I found very interesting. Now, if I can only get my hand on those mystery school texts, what the mystery schools did somehow was to help you completely identify and isolate the human soul, right? Dr. George M. James says the description of the soul by Aristotle seems to vary somewhat from a more familiar current idea held by atomists. On one hand, in Socrates, Plato, and Pythagoras on the other, for the while the former believed the soul is material and composed of fire atoms, the latter regarded it as a harmony of the body and a blending of opposites. Is the same thing. The body is water. It's all elements. It's water and fire. So I was telling Nikki the other day. Um, I was asking Nikki, like, when somebody codes or, like, has a heart attack, how do you restart their heart? You restart it with an electric pulse, right? So that literally means that inside of all of us, there's a fire burning.
Same thing with the brain.
Yeah, that's but your soul's intertwined with that. Like, there's literally a fire, which is kind of common sense because we got heat, right? We have body heat. Where is that coming from? But the interesting thing about that is I kind of put on the tinfoil kufi and connected a dot. I was like, oh, we're the people of the sun. We're the sun people. So what if that little bitty spark of life that we call a soul originally came from the sun? It's just a little speculation, but what do I
And
know?
Doc, you know the story. By the way, this is complete confirmation that the ancient ancient Kemetic people were black. You know the story that the Greeks have of what was it of who asked to borrow the chariot of Helios, the god of the sun god. Someone asked to borrow the chariot of
Uh-huh.
Helios, and he lost control of it. Was it Hermes, or was it Apollo, or was it one of those demigods? The story, basically the story, someone, it was either a demigod, maybe one of Zeus's bastard children or whatever, that asked to borrow the chariot of Helios, the god of the sun. And the Greeks had this idea that the god of the sun, Helios, would take the sun and drive it, pull it on a chariot, pull it via chariot across the sun, because they were, this is another reason why they weren't that smart. They were geocentric. They thought the sun rotated around the earth, whereas the Egyptians knew better. uh,
Right.
but one day they fashioned that one of their demigod heroes. I don't think it was Apollo or Hermes, because the person ended up getting murked at the end of the story. But basically, it was one of Zeus's children that he had with a mortal, and they asked to hold to drive to drive the chariot of the sun. And Helios was forced to oblige because it was a request from the boss's son. And the dude, took control of the sun and was driving it, but eventually he lost control of the reins, and the sun went too far away, and it started to freeze. And then they said that he drove the chariot too close to the sun, and they bring up particularly that he accidentally drove the chariot of the sun too close to Ethiopia. They called Africa Ethiopia. So he said he blackened the people of Ethiopia by driving the chariot too close to the sun, and that's how they got so dark. They specifically wrote that into their legend. It's a common legend of the god Helios. I forget who actually did the deed of misdriving the chariot, but eventually Zeus Zeus grabs the thunderbolt and just like zaps the dude and kills him. But that is part of ancient Greek Hellenistic religion. That's part of the religion that, the god Helios, was he has had his wheels out alone, and that's what blackened the people of Africa because the sun got too close to them, which in some ways is kind of the truth because the equatorial line and whatnot. But I just wanted to bring that up. So
And
y'all listening, if someone brings that up to you, bring that legend up to them. Next time people try to deny the blackness of the ancient Egyptians, bring that up to them.
that's hilarious. We have so many quotes. It's not. I tried to get all the quotes to show that Egyptians were of African descent, and it was a whole book. It took up multiple pages when I tried to compile them. So yeah, I don't need to prove that anymore.
I can never find the quote in the book of the Coming Forth by Day. It argues that well argue it kind of states that the darkness of melanin comes from the basically the more intense the fire, like we just said, the soul is a fire, right? And just like the candle, if you light a candle and you put a white sheet of paper above it, that like black, soot will get on the paper and kind of stain the paper black. Like darker you are, or the more melanin you have, and it doesn't necessarily mean your skin color, because I'm heavily melanated, but I'm light skinned. You can have melanin on your nervous system. That comes from your soul. That burning fire inside of you is the a byproduct of that flame is melanin, which is the darkness, which is very fascinating, because the inverse of that is if you don't have a soul, or you have a very tiny soul, you won't be producing that type of that substance. And in a way, it makes sense. You gonna say something, Wani?
No, no, I wasn't.
Somebody's gonna say.
I wasn't next.
Oh, oh, okay. I thought you were saying something. Well, uh, Dr. George M. James says in the Genesis story, it asserted that God made man out of matter, i.e., the dust of the earth, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Here we have a clear statement of the identity of body and soul taken from the document of Genesis. So basically, um, that information was saying that basically the spark of life was given to you by Creator, who is said to be the Son. It makes perfect sense. So basically, we're little sparks of the sun walking around, trapped inside of a human machine. We're avatars. Does that mean life is a video game? What do I know?
Kind of.
Anyway, good. What you say?
Kind of, but not that simple. We are avatars. We're in a body, and we'll leave and we'll still be something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So, the point of this space was the idea that education is being used. Education is lying to our kids. Lying is being used as a warfare to frame a certain people as the creators um, of usefulness, and by what do you call it? By omission, frame us as absolutely useless. And what other ways do y'all think the educational system lies on us and makes it like we're we're useless and the dominant society is ingenious? Think about that. Any thoughts?
On how they make us feel like we're useless. Well,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
haven't
yeah. Maybe I was being
we
comfortable.
have enough um freedom in our minds. We're not as colonized as other groups, to where we shouldn't be so affected by all of their shenanigans. We should be teaching our own children. Just like me, I was given different books. I wasn't indoctrinated, but my father would go, "Oh, this is interesting. What do you think about this?" And I would look in the book to see what was happening. This is a way that you can develop thoughts independent of what's taught in school. So what you learn in school is, you need to have those basics, like 1 plus 1 is 2, how to spell and everything, but just don't take it to heart is all I have to say. You don't take it to heart. You vaccinate yourself, like I said yesterday. The vaccination to school is to know that it is an agenda to paint things, the way that the colonists want them painted, but you can still learn to read and write and do arithmetic. Like they said, reading, writing, arithmetic. Those are basic tools you need to navigate through life. And you can focus on those because those are not as steeped in opinion and all of those things that make me lash out, like when they say, "Hey, we discovered America." Native Americans were not people. When they say those types of things, um it's a knee-jerk reaction. But if I focus on just getting the information to navigate through life, like learning math, reading and writing, then that's where the focus should be, not on all these ideologies of like what they're doing now. You thought I had it bad. All I had to do is argue about whether Columbus discovered America. Okay? So that's nothing. He didn't. How do you discover something that's got people on it that you just killed? Um, that was my childish argument. Children today have to navigate around pamphlets telling them how to play with themselves. Okay? They have to
Wow.
navigate around pamphlets telling them they don't have to be boys or girls and how to get their genitals removed. They have all kinds of things. Oh, this is the right kind of family to have two women or just one woman. Just coloring books, bigging these types of families up. You see? Um, so in their quest to, well, it's an agenda. Okay, they've framed it like we're just trying to be inclusive to other people. Yeah, but you don't big up deviancy at the in, in opposition to the regular people. You don't do that. You don't big up deviant behavior because a few people might have two moms or whatever their case is. You don't put that up over regular family structures and give coloring books out. So they obviously have an agenda because who would do that? That's just a side thing. Yeah, don't tease that child because they have two mothers. That's all you need to say. Yeah, don't tease them. That's the situation they're dealing with. But no, you don't do coloring books encouraging the behavior.
Yeah, well, if you that is actually related to our prior discussion about the group of people, and I'm avoiding words because I don't want to get myself in trouble with my space. But that group of people who, when I said Alexander took over the library and stole the books, this that group of people walked into the vacuum. I call them refugees. Well, they studied us. They know who we are, and according to Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. G.M. James, they stolen our identity to a certain extent. Well, going back to the agenda of the isms, feminism. I've said before on spaces that those agendas are psychological weapons created in Nazi Germany to destroy societies, and they were created by this Germanic group of people who can be traced in some part back to the refugees in ancient Kemet. Dr. G.M. James says the the Library of Alexandria was a true source of Aristotle's large number of books. It is to be expected that the Library of Alexandria was immediately ransacked and looted by Alexander and his party, no doubt made of Aristotle and others who did not only carry off large quantities of scientific books, but also frequently returned to Alexandria for this purpose for research. So these groups of people research the hell out of us, and they seem hell bent on trying to look for different ways to make us disappear. Is that out of fear? What are your thoughts, what Robbie? Go ahead, Robbie.
Oh no, bro, you were cooking. You mentioned World War II, and as I'm listening to you talk, you just are reminding me of something I heard this gentleman saying in this interview, and he was a physicist, and he was pointing out that around the time of World War II, they were encouraging everyone to get into science and understand logic and physics and so forth. And then he said later on, because there was such a proliferation of nuclear weapons and so many people getting that knowledge, the government purposely started discouraging people to get into sciences and shift from things like physics to get into like biology, pushing us to get into entertainment because it was becoming a national security threat and they wanted to control the information. So now they started making, in other words, if you, it used to be if you were a physicist or a scientist, think about them old school movies. That was like the backdrop of a lot of science fiction and a lot of movies at the time. Then all of a sudden in the
Mm,
80s, you had Revenge of the Nerds. And then everybody started like, frowning upon anybody who tried to like understand science. And I find it pretty interesting if we think about today, they're kind of hypocrites when they act like there's not enough people, you know, especially quote unquote people of color, being represented. I think it was done intentionally. They literally said it. They intentionally did this, like to try to make physics uncool and certain areas of science uncool because there was too many people that were becoming smart and understanding nuclear fission and understanding in other words, they could develop technology that could challenge the social order or the power. Yeah.
mm. Right, right. And they know that we are the originators of this technology and we would be better at it. I think the cat's out the bag now. Gen Z, foundational Black Americans and Gen Z are migrating towards science, whereas, like you said, a whole lot of effort was used to tell children that A, science is not cool, it's not hip, and B, science is not for you. I remember when I was coming up in the 90s, the movies made the scientists, they were either white or Asian. Those were the cliches. It wasn't for us, which is very fascinating because we created it.
Do you think
Yeah.
that character on Happy Days that was against education might have been part of an agenda to make everybody not interested in going to school?
You to my fawns?
Yes.
Yeah, well, but yeah, but there's a little symbolism with Fonz because he was a darker character. Didn't he wear black jackets and he
Yeah, it's
was
a
like a
biker.
dark, yeah. So he wasn't like a blonde, a lily blonde. So Dr. Frances Cress Welsing would, I'm sure she would agree that that's some type of sub.
Yeah,
What
he
do you
was
call it?
playing an Italian, but he's Jewish.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. It makes sense though. But yeah, he was playing somebody who was dark. And I would also point out that the lighter complected Europeans were allowed to play intellectuals. I remember a show I actually used to watch for a little while, and without realizing that it was poisoning me, poisoning my perception, called Doogie Howser. Y'all remember that one? Yeah,
Yes.
and what Doogie Howser was really saying that this is not for you. This is for geeky
Well, the
European.
other character, Ron Howard, was the blonde on there, and he was the one that was, going to school and being good, while Fonzie was
Hmm.
Italian and being against education.
Yeah, and I would say he could have served as a proxy because back then, I don't know the years of that. I saw reruns of that when I was a child,
Yeah,
but
70s.
But
seven.
think
Yeah,
about it.
Dick Greg.
Oh, I was going to say
Go
Bill
ahead.
Cosby depicted a doctor, but it had to be a comedy. And then I'll never forget this. Y'all remember in the movie Terminator 2, they had a black guy that supposedly in the narration was responsible for the birth of Skynet, like something evil, and that they always make it look like the black scientist is incompetent or he's a bumbling idiot. You know what I mean? Like they try to discourage science being cool, even though we know in reality it could be awesome. I'm sorry to cut you.
No, no, that's perfect, Robbie, because you brought that up. I was gonna bring up. Me and my wife. She wanted to see Ninja Turtles, the new remake. She hated it. I kind of liked it, but it was if y'all seen, I was a big Ninja Turtles fan back in the day. But if you if y'all watched the newest, maybe a year old now, Ninja Turtles, that came to the movie theater, the scientist who created the Ninja Turtles was a black dude. So that's a good point, Robbie. That they will allow the system will allow a foundational black American to be a scientist, but is there are conditions there? He has to be doing some shit that's just wrong. He has to be a bad guy. Either a bad guy or a goofy ass fumbling idiot. You know what I'm saying? I
What
don't
do you think about what's his face? The guy with three names. Why can't I ever remember his name? There's another guy that created a time machine. Of course, not by himself. He's working with a team, but he's a lead. Um, they said they shifted time a little bit, so it is
you are
possible.
you talking about the black kid off of
No, you know the guy.
no.
He's always we're like somebody knows who it is. He's an adult
Neil
black man.
deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy. But
light
this
skin brother.
other
Yeah.
black guy, yeah, this other black guy, he created a time, like he's working on a time machine. So you know, science is fun. And I noticed that during Black History Month, when we start talking about all these scientists and these women calculating the moon landing, people think that's cool. So how come that can't extend into the classroom and people start studying those things so they can be on the next Black History Month?
Right. I just thought about it. You talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that there's an issue there. So here we go. So Neil deGrasse Tyson um frequently comes after other black intellectuals in public venues. My brother-in-law brought me a book, one of his popular books, and in open venue in his book, he came after he did a character assassination on Ivan Van Sertima, basically called Van Sertima an idiot. And basically, I can't say that word, but basically he was being an
He's
uncle.
always doing that.
Yeah, I don't like that shit.
He's
Yeah,
always
but
doing that.
I viewed it as kind of like telling the system of white supremacy, like kissing up, like look at me, I'm attacking a black dude. You know who does that
Mm.
a lot? That Joker. What's that Joker's name? If he's a PhD from Princeton, he talks like this, and my fine black sisters. What's that motherfucker's name? Um,
I
God
have
dang,
no
he's
idea.
light skinned and
Michael Eric Dyson.
he's a yeah
I feel so senile
man.
right now. Because there's another name I can't remember. Who's the guy that just had all these patents on things? And he was talking about stuff that was so far over my head I had to listen three times. He's an actor. Terrence Howard, is that him?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
hustle and flow.
Terrence is like a street. I was listening to one of his
Right. I
spaces.
mean, no,
Yeah,
so
go
people
ahead.
attack him too. It's like, why? Why are you attacking him? I mean, you don't even understand what he's saying, probably, but you're mad at it.
That's a perfect example about this that shows this caste system that is perpetuated through the falsities in the American educational system. Terrence, y'all know I had no clue that Terrence was such a genius because I saw him off. I remember him off of Hustle and Flow where he played a not only a pimp but a pimp, right? And the show that my family likes to watch, what was it, Empire or whatever, where he's like the dope dealing record producer or something. And then I heard him open his mouth years later. I was like, holy shit. I couldn't even believe it. Y'all know that Terrence said that he remembers being carried in the womb. He
Yes, I've
remembers
heard
being
that.
carried in
That's
utero.
outrageous.
Triple
That's the kind of
darkness in the
stuff
Yeah.
room.
that
Hey, he might have.
Uh-oh. Juan, are you talking?
no.
Oh, okay. I think you my space kind of acted up for a minute. Um, yeah. He was saying that he remembers seeing light in his mom's stomach and being carried, and it's indicative of just raw genius. But it's very unfortunate that we're in this system. We have to suppress our genius. We can't let people know how smart we are if we want to advance. You know what I'm saying? Acting smart or acting dignified in this system automatically puts a target on your back. It's a crying shame. Yep. I was look, and I saw.
You you broke up.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Are you out? Are you driving?
No, I'm at home, but I'm gonna quickly put a picture of Patah in the
Oh, I did
jumbotron.
look
This
him
is
up. He puts me in the mind of Imhotep. Imhotep a bit. But you know, to hear the
yes,
ancient aliens tell it that these Egyptians were one of them married his grandmother, the other one married his sister, and they didn't want to mix with other groups. And but to hear the ancient aliens tell it, they're aliens, so they're not going to mix with you because they're just mixing with each other. But I think it was just a
yeah.
typical thing where you have people that don't want to share power and have outsiders involved.
Maybe that's where we learned it from. But I read that they weren't having sex. It was kind of symbolic thing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it wasn't like European. It wasn't that type of ordeal. But I wanted to illustrate how the system um, does what do you call it? Lies of omission, by showing y'all an excerpt out of a book that has. It's gonna take a minute for me to find it, but it shows. Um, it calls the white. It gives the white members of history like a title, and then it shows foundational Black American inventor, and it doesn't give him the same title. This system is very, with respect to education or miseducation, is very subtle. Now, Dr. Welsing identifies your subconscious mind. Like your subconscious mind is where you attack people. If I come in your face and say I'm gonna hit you, you're gonna put up your defenses. But if you're subtle with it, you can attack our children. You can the attack will make it through. And subtleties in the school books attack our children on a constant basis. Like in the title, calling Aristotle the father of logic, which we proved real quick that he wasn't. Um, Once children see a picture of Aristotle, that puts him in a light of, he's a leader, he's a father, he created something. Well, where am I in this picture? And when foundational Black American kids don't see themselves in the book or see themselves in a subservient role, a whole miseducation has just occurred. So we're going to have to take responsibility to spread this word to our own kids.
We are. It's our job to do it, and I'll tell you why. Suppose, like I said before, suppose I was from a mother with a Slavic background. Say I was from Poland, but I'm proud of my, background. Say I was proud of that. Do you think the school system is going to teach great things about Polish people? They're probably going to say, hey, that's where they were keeping all the concentration camps. They're probably not going to say anything positive or show them in a positive light. So, what is that doing to their background? They're going to look and say, oh, well, all the people we're talking about are English. Well, we're not English. So see, that's the Slavic mother is going to have to say, "Hey, these are the things that Slavic people did." These are the tribes that they had. These are the foods that they developed. That's what the parents are going to have to say, and that's what we have to do because we are under, this is an English colony, and they want to tell English points of view, and they always did. And then we fought back and we had Afrocentric teaching, which was an overcorrection, which didn't even have a lot of the right information because how can we make, you know, characterize what our ethnicity is if we don't have any DNA proof of what our ethnicity is. Now we have a very good picture. A lot of researchers have studied our genetics. So now we really do know what's going on and how many people are involved, where before we only had a lot of rumors about what we thought was happening and what might have been. So we have way more information now to have informed opinions, and we don't need to rely on white people teaching things because, to be honest, the education is incomplete. Even if you are
Totally.
a little white girl sitting there from an English background, you're getting indoctrinated. You're not giving the full picture. You're giving a biased view of things. So either way, you need to supplement your child's information. You really do.
Yeah, we're all suffering, and that's a really good point. The system is trying to keep foundational Black American children in a certain lower caste, but the whole denying white kids the whole truth is hindering their process of growth. You know what I'm saying? You need the whole truth to draw accurate conclusions. I think this is a greater reason why certain institutions such as medicine and law and education, the professions are failing because our quote unquote best and brightest don't have whole information to draw a conclusion from, and they're just lacking once they get to the top to leadership positions. They're operating on at 50% capacity. Now it took me a minute, but forgive me for taking that long, but I found what I wanted to show y'all, and I put it in the jumbotron. So what I did is I found a foundational Black American named James Forden, who was a very wealthy leader in Philadelphia, a very wealthy Black leader, right? So look at that picture of James Forden. Notice, and he has a little cameo. You know what I'm saying? And it has information up under him. But look at him, and then look at Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Roger Sherman. What does it say above their names? It says key players. Now, the layman would miss that attack. But when you call a lily white James Madison a key player, guess what kids are going to be asking? What's key mean? What does that mean? Like you're saying that they're very important, and then you just mention James Forden as if he wasn't very important. Why does it not say key player above James Forden's head? Y'all see that attack? Furthermore, Alexander Hamilton looked more like me, and I'm so sick and tired of seeing pictures of Alexander Hamilton not only looking full Caucasian, but looking whiter than Thomas Jefferson. So that's an attack too. My Today I was going over I teach two sections of constitutional law, and we were going on over state constitutions today, supremacy clause and all that. It's not very interesting. I like it. It almost put me to sleep. But we were talking about eminent domain. Those who don't know what eminent domain is when the state or federal government decides they want your shit, and
Highways and stuff like
basically
that.
they
Yep.
can take your house without compensating you. And I was telling my students that's what happened to Black neighborhoods, as all of y'all know. Um, uh, when we were had booming neighborhoods like Tulsa and one of my students said this. She said, "Dr. A, isn't that what happened with Oscarville and Lake Lanier?" And I was like, "Oh, damn, you're right. That was eminent domain, right? Because the state of Georgia wanted to create a dam to build more energy for Atlanta. Atlanta Metro was getting bigger, and furthermore, they needed drinking water. So they decided, you know what? There's a Black neighborhood in this valley, but we're just gonna fucking kill them. We're gonna we're gonna flood this area. The Army Corps of Engineers was complicit, and they just flooded that area with some people in their house that died, and they had some cockamamie excuse to some child, some 14-year-old baby, who allegedly raped and stoned a white woman, which I don't believe, and that was a lynch mob's excuse to just run through the neighborhood and either kill or escort out. I think it was over 1,200 foundational Black Americans. There's a whole town there. Well, it's underwater now. And I wanted to show, what I'm saying, to be honest with you, I was tired as fuck because I was on the road all night. And I was like, oh, thank God she gave me an excuse to sit down, not lecture, and just play a video about Lake Lanier because, um, a lot of my students were very interested in Lake Lanier. And I got about 30 minutes through a documentary that did not mention, it was talking about Lake Lanier, and it didn't mention black people. It was showing the ghost, the alleged ghost of Lake Lanier, and they were all like white women. And they were like, well, this white woman died right here. I'm so I'm fucking dead serious. Like it had like they were like Hanny is referred to as the Lady of the Lake, and she allegedly died on her way walking down the da da da, and she fell and she haunts Lake Lanier. Like if you watched that and you didn't know, like some of my students, they away from my lecture with the impression that Lake Lanier, like Oscarville, I think is the name of the town that got flooded, that Oscarville was a white town. Yeah, education is attacking us, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the same thing as
Brother,
the internet, where when I was Googling, this is a while ago, Googling each music genre to see the exact dates of when people recorded things or published things, they didn't even mention black people in rock and roll. It was like, oh, they don't have anything to do with that. And they really
wow.
don't want to mention us in jazz, except we have all the popular jazz artists, but they didn't want to mention that. They started talking about, what was that guy? Whatever, some white boy with a big band. So they do that. It's like really crazy on some things that are obviously associated with us.
Interesting. We're gonna go with Brother Muko and then go to Black Rec. Talk to us, Muko. It's good to see you. Ain't seen you in a while, man.
Yeah, definitely good to see you, Professor, everybody in the space, Wani, everybody. I just came in when you were talking about Lake Lanier. Some of my ancestors actually owned property and died in Oscarville. They
Wow.
drowned down there. And now it is officially a water park with our ancestors still at the bottom of that lake. Um, and I just wanted, because I did a space on this probably about 6 months ago in real detail. Do you know that sometimes in emergency cases that they use the water for drinking water for Atlanta? That's crazy.
Yeah, I
I
was
think
saying that
that's
earlier. Yeah.
crazy. To have a whole city still intact with churches, cemeteries, and everything still intact, and then on top of the add insult to injury, the victims and the descendants from the victims, you make them drink or use that as their drinking supply. I mean, that's really without filtering. I think that's it's a real atrocity when you think about it and you get to digging the covers off of this. And Oscarville was just one of the many towns that they drowned and buried with water. They've been doing that a lot. They've been flooding us out a lot, killing us by way of, you know, um, damaging dams and purposely damaging dams so that they could overflood our cities and drown us out. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. But to the topic, Aristotle, being the father of logic, no, I think he was the father of homosexuality. Him and Socrates both taught that the most powerful love is the love between two men, and they also taught, especially Aristotle, just the generative. Well, I ain't gonna cuss on your space. It is recorded, and this is a teaching space. But yeah, they definitely practice degenerate behaviors of sexual confusion, and they also taught young Alexander and Alexander's father, Philip of Macedonia, Yeah, they also taught them that agape love was the most powerful love, which is between a toddler boy and a grown man. So I just wanted to throw that in the air. Yeah, I just
Oh my
wanted to throw that
God.
in the air. Thank you for having this space, and definitely thank you for letting me speak.
Oh yeah. That's disturbing. Very disturbing. I wonder what that's about.
I'm
Um,
still working on that, but each group of men has this issue. Samurai men, I literally have artwork that they drew with samurai men and the younger samurai and with monks and the younger children. Um, every group is doing this. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
yeah, keep me in a loop. But you know, actually, maybe I don't really need to know. But I just it's a link.
Professor, I
Go
have a
ahead.
question to ask you. You guys just made me think, and I always thought it was odd. You know, why, like in Catholicism, right? They'll have like an all boys school, all girls school, or they'll tell people they got to be nuns or priests and they have to like take a vow, supposedly, right, of never having
Celibacy,
sex.
yeah.
And I just thought, like, yeah, I think some of that stuff is just like really weirdo. And then you always hear about these inappropriate relationships that pop up from those
But they
institutions.
say to
And you
do
don't
it.
have to touch that.
So what they do is they say you're not supposed to do it, and then they encourage you to do it because they feel like you need to do something. I'm not sure why they encourage this abuse on younger boys that are uh, in the monastery, but they do, and they've been doing it forever because that Greco-Roman Empire touched the papacy, and um, they've been doing this since the castrati. They castrated them and sexually abused them. They have a
Wow.
whole dancing boy culture where the boys dance, dress up like women all over Central Asia, going into Asia. Some of this seems to be that they had the women tucked away, like women aren't supposed to be outside, you go in the house. And then when the men were left out there like that, then these other types of activities started, taking place. Like with the dancing boy thing, it was like, oh well, we don't want the women to dance sexy, so we'll have the boys to dress up in women's clothes and dance sexy. And then the next thing you know, they're having sex with them.
Oh
And then
my.
you would even see those older, quote unquote, statesmen that were the English gentlemen. They will be wearing wigs and stockings. They would just be and putting on makeup.
Hmm.
You never noticed
Yeah,
that too?
that was during the French. What was the name of that wig? Whatever. They had their heads shaved because they had
The
massive
Victorian
lice.
Victorian era or something.
It- it-
Wow.
they had horrible lice, so that's how the wigs got into play. The big gigantic wigs, and yeah, they had on the stockings, and apparently they stank like buzzards.
Well, Robbie, what I was told, and for the last couple years since I've had this awakening, several years, I kind of take what I was taught in the in official academic canon with a grain of salt because I don't know what to believe anymore. But what I was taught was the Catholic Church. I was taught that in the Catholic Church in the beginning, initially, they would allow their priests to get married, but they stopped doing that because priests, when they got married and they were having procreative sex, they would have heirs, and the priests would leave their belongings and their what do you call it, their inheritances to their children. And I was taught that the Catholic Church wanted all of the belongings, all of the um, I want to say valuables. I should know a legal term for that, but inheritance has to be willed to the Catholic Church. So that's why they eliminated marriage to make sure that the everything owned by the priest was willed back to the Catholic Church. That's what I was taught. I tend to kind of believe that a little bit as well. We're gonna go Shiloh, then we're going to Brother Muko.
He was before me, but I'll say something just real quick because while you guys are on this topic, how y'all doing? First of all,
What's up, brother?
right on. Man, that's crazy. Y'all talking about this, man. They was saying that those the people are that are in office are governors and all that stuff. One of those top officials are in the cabinet, or what they had to they brought him downstairs in the basement and put a gun to his head. They had a little boy down there. He told him, now, do him in. You know what I'm saying? Or we gonna do you. And they got him on camera doing that, and that's how they get these people, these officials, to do what they all part of the damn club. And it's just crazy. I'm like, you guys is messing with these kids, and that don't even make no sense to me. I never even like. I'm like, what the heck? What is wrong with you guys? And it's like a, I got something on you, you got something on me. We all together, and so we all in. And I'm like,
Yeah, I heard that before.
yeah.
Yeah, big
I,
time.
I I forgot what you guys are touching on so much. I forgot. I'm gonna drop down because I can hear y'all better with this old raggedy Android phone. But y'all got iPhones and stuff. Y'all ballers out here. But yeah, but I never liked iPhone. Android's way better. But everybody got their preference. But yeah, hey, thank you for having the space, y'all. When I remember, I want to say what I was about to tell y'all. But anyway, y'all go on ahead and do your thing.
Oh yeah, but Shiloh, thank you for bringing that up. And I'm gonna kind of protect some names
Yeah,
because
yeah, that's right.
when I was in when I was in undergrad, let's just say, let me be careful with this. A politician mentored me, like I had a politician who was a
Mhm.
mentor, and he was a big time politician, foundational Black American, and he had a couple drinks and told me some shit like
Mhm.
that. He said, man, he said that they're let me put it this vehicle that would pick up young like newly elected politicians, young men who were newly elected, and this vehicle, they'd say, we're taking you here to show you a good time. Congratulations, good job, kid, you're elected. How do you feel? And he said, you get in the vehicle, and the vehicle would get off the ground.
Whoa.
And once, well, I guess I should just say it was an airplane,
Mhm.
but once it leveled off, he said the girls would come out
Mhm.
from the front and start undressing, and they'll do whatever you
Guilty.
want, and they were recording the whole thing. So because like now I got your ass.
Exactly.
You vote against me if you want, motherfucker. I'm gonna send your wife this tape. I'm
That's your
gonna.
blackmail.
Yeah, buddy. This is a cold
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
The black talk. Oh, was it the black or brother
Yeah,
Muko?
it was.
Brother Muka.
I'll go real quick. I just wanted to note, y'all are hitting on all cylinders tonight. This is a great space. The Catholic Church in California has settled a lawsuit today. I was just reading about it. 900 million, the biggest lawsuit ever in history about sexual
Again,
assault. 900
they
million.
already had one, a
Yep.
massive one before.
Exactly. That one was for 600 million
Oh my
over
goodness.
over in the UK or over there in that area. So here in
No, I'm
California.
speaking about in California.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. In California, what they were trying to do back then was trying to what they were trying to do was just they were trying to dead the whole thing. They were trying to put it in like garnishment, not garnishment, but escrow, so to speak. Um, like with the charges, they were trying to delay them, but they could. And the reason why they were trying to do this is they were saying that most of these priests that have the charges against them, most of them are dead. And so they were saying that, it's really no reason to convict and, this, that, and the other. But see, what that
Shit.
was doing, they were trying to protect the ones that are still living and transfer them. Because, see, all the Catholic Church would do is when a Catholic priest is accused of rape or something like that, all they would do, they wouldn't lock him up. All they would do was transfer him to another church, another state, okay? Just like they do the race soldiers. So I just wanted to put that out in the atmosphere, and also with the the so-called agape love, the sexual relationship between a toddler boy and a grown man. Yes, Sister Wani was correct. They've been doing this since the Roman Greco era, and I'm gonna tell you what this comes from. See, the Romans and the Greeks teachers were chem people. Okay, the chem gave the Greeks their nickname, the Greeks, and they named them Greeks because back in those days, and Professor touched on this a couple weeks ago in his space, the Kim would give the Greeks nicknames according to their devious ways or their shortcomings, so that it could remind them that this is my name and this is what I have to work on. See, the Greeks didn't want to do the spiritual work that it took to, talk to the ancestors and that so on and so forth. So this is why they created the whole one God and the liberty and the liberty to fight for freedom. See, they were fighting to be free to do nothing. And we adopted that shit, not knowing exactly what freedom they were talking about. We thought freedom, and we combined freedom to slavery, being free of slavery. But that's what the Greeks and the Romans looked at the Kim's spiritual teachings as bondage. Like, man, why I gotta keep my ass clean? Why I gotta pray? Why I gotta light incense? Why I gotta, sit in that position and pray for an hour? Man, I'm tired of doing all that shit. I want to be free of doing that. And that's where liberty and freedom and all that shit came from. So to fast forward that to this debaucherous behavior,
Interesting.
the behavior, if you remember, Caesar was fucking little boys. All that whole line, Julius Caesar, Bactidius and Junetinius and all those Titius and all those guys practiced doing it to little boys. They did not like their women. They abused their women. I mean, their women was their first slaves. And furthermore, they were only used. Guess what? If they couldn't produce a son, they wasn't no good to them. It was a guy named his name began with a C, and he was the one that was always with. I cannot believe I'm drawing a blank. I used to remember all these Romans for their little debaucherous behaviors, but yeah, yeah.
Are you talking about Caligula?
Caligula,
Caligula?
thank you, brother. Caligula practiced this. Caligula was so sick he hated his mother. He murdered his mother. Okay.
Caligula got his little sister pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and at a party when she gave birth, he put the baby on the menu. He ate his own fucking incest baby.
Yep, and this is their history. This is their history. This is what they do. This is what they're used to. And on top of that, this is what they have been centuries refining, century after century, refining it and practicing it, and then practicing it on the descendants of the Kim. And that's what we getting practice on. Right now, this day, this was Alexander and his father's 500-year plan. Alexander, Ptolemy, all of that. This shit was set up by them. This is the and even me and Professor was talking about it, and I mean all the way up and well, the point that I've came to this point in my studies, and me and Professor was discussing this. All of these presidents are part of that bloodline. All of them.
Oh man,
All of them.
yeah. In a moment, I'm gonna go get a book because Muko, you brought up something that's why I love these spaces. Is like more than one brain works. Like yeah, it helps you connect stuff. Muko brought up liberty. Like I was saying, I teach two sections of con law, and I blow my students' minds when I say that the fucking Constitution was created. It was a cap. The word liberty was exactly what Muko said it was. Now, Muko, I didn't even make that connection. Hobbes and Locke were the philosophers used by basically plagiarized by Thomas Jefferson. Freedom, liberty, justice, and Locke. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, Locke was he was the original Willie Lynch. Now, nobody knows if Willie Lynch was real. But Hobbes and Locke were real, and Locke was a English businessman who was in the slave trade, and he was an advisor to the South Carolina and North Carolina plantations during the 13 colonies. And basically, Locke wrote a fucking manual that said, use words like freedom so the slaves will think they're free, but it's really a code word. Who talks about that a lot is Dr. Claude Anderson. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Appreciate you, Muko. The
Definitely.
Black, talk to us.
What's going on, family? Uh,
What up, bro?
Want to hit on something earlier when it came down to the and Rob did too when it came down to the boys choirs, because you know they this where they start. I forgot the term of it, but this when the little trans issues start coming, because when they used to uh cut the balls off of young little boys and make them sing. That's how you get altos and sopranos back then. That's how they used to make them. And if you do it before puberty, they turn into like the little lady boys in Japan. But if you do it after puberty, they can still, know what I'm saying, reproduce. And that's when they become. That's when Muslims, they used to use them as uh guards of their harems, because they knew they couldn't be they wouldn't have the urge to want to sleep with the women. And it's something about this little female male relationship when it comes down to the Caucasian race, white race, whatever they want to call each other, cause they really hate each other. Like it's it and I think about the Iceman, I can't think of the book.
The Iceman
Yes,
Inheritance.
yes, the Iceman Inheritance. John Henry Clark got a video on YouTube that where he talks about that with the author, and they really have since them years in the younger dry stuck in the mountains, they really had a transition, kind of like we had a transition, but it was more on a evil satanic wave than we were. Since we was closer to the sun, we was in areas of major prosperity where we could go grab a fruit out the tree and didn't think of it. We didn't know nothing about owning this and owning that, because everything was abundant. They come from scarcity, so all they do is war with each other, and that's why they have all these epics and stories in their history of wars. And we don't really have that many until somebody comes from some other land and they a different skin tone, and we try to be nice to them, and because the story repeats wherever they go. They meet some natives, the natives are being nice to them, and then they debauchery just start coming out of them because they can't hold it within themselves. Whether somebody is treating them with kindness or somebody treating them with the sword like they want to.
Right, right. Uh, Go ahead, Shiloh.
Okay, so the whole time I was scrolling through the timeline, man, and I thought, Professor, I know you and Wani know about this, but I thought that Statue of Liberty was supposed to be for when the slaves were freed or something. That's why they have that chain around their leg. Well, yeah, okay. Well, they put this other statue. It looks just like the Statue of Liberty, but it's a male. It was big as the Statue. It was in Rome, I believe, or some, and it was named Lucifer, and it's got his hand up just like that. It looks like the same exact person in the face and everything, but it's a male, and they named it Lucifer. And I said, these guys are playing a sick game. They've been playing sick games, but yeah, I just had to say, I don't know if you guys seen that or what, but yeah, it was on the timeline, and I'm trying
Yeah,
to find it, but yeah, I was just trying to see that.
yeah, that. Yeah, it's all code word and talking about Lucifer. The European refers to Lucifer. Y'all ever heard of the story of Prometheus?
Damn. Yeah.
Prometheus brought fire in a tube
Yep.
to
Yep.
save people. Prometheus was supposed to be Satan, and basically, like Satan gave,
Oh,
told
right there.
Eve to, in the biblical tradition, told Eve to eat the apple. The apple gave him knowledge. Prometheus stole fire in a tube from God and gave it to people. and was punished for it. But anyway, that whole, maybe I'm saying too much on spaces, but that torch, that is a Luciferian symbol. I've just recently found that out. The torch is a represents Prometheus, like the fire and the two. A lot of people say that torch is a Luciferian symbol. I just learned that. Uh,
Yeah, the light
The
Go ahead,
bearer,
light
Robert.
bearer.
bringing knowledge to, yeah, bringing knowledge to.
The light bearer, yes, literally. I mean, Robbie put it very simple. I go around the world to say something just as simple. The light, the bearer of light, Lucifer. That's what that means. Before we go to Robbie, I found the quote on Locke. So Locke was the head philosopher used to create the Constitution, and like Dr. Claude Anderson says, the Constitution is full of cap. Now, I love that Muko took it way back with the whole justice. I didn't know that, Muko. I didn't know that the words justice and liberty have been thrown around with Roman um, and Greek secret societies. I didn't know it was that old. I knew it went to Locke, but it makes perfect sense to me because Locke was in a secret fucking society. So was Thomas Jefferson. And according to Dr. Howard Zinn, Locke's quote, Locke's statement of people's government was in support of a revolution of England for the free development of mercantile capitalism at home and abroad. Locke himself regretted that the labor of poor children is generally lost to the public till they are 12 or 14 years old, and suggested that all children over three families should attend working schools so they would be from infancy um, inured to work. He was a son of a bitch. So Locke wanted all children at eight. He basically got mad that they weren't working when they were 3 years old. He was a slave driver, and he used those words like Muko said of liberty and justice to keep the slaves in order, because they working to the bone, but they're like, hey man, no, 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 we working for liberty and justice, just pimp game, that's all. Come on, Robbie.
Well, you pretty much did the perfect segue of what I was going to expand upon, because when the brother said the thing about liberty, I'm like, it makes sense. And when you think about Luciferianism, do as thy will, like just to be
Right.
totally like a hedonist, like you don't have to put a governor on your morality. If you get enough money and you get enough quote unquote power, then you have the freedom to do as you will, which is why I have an issue with everyone that claims now that they're a minority and they're white. Because if you think about it, I'm like, when were white women enslaved in America and treated like our people or treated like black women? Never. When were white men, even if they say they were poor, they were freedmen? And guess what? Quote unquote free men to do as they will. They could do whatever they wanted to do to a black person. If you were a poor white overseer, you know what I'm saying? It's no different than what we see with the police officers. Life and death was in their hands. So when I'm thinking about these people now crying and acting like the system's not working for them and they don't trust the government, it's like they totally tailored this system at one point to be like the wild, wild west and them to do what they want. The only difference that I can surmise is there's no honor amongst thieves, which is why they don't want to ever get rid of the elite status. They want to replace the elite status. They want to be rich, white, and have no accountability. You know what I'm saying? They want to be able to do all the most sexual, debaucherous things. They want their money and everything to protect them. And they literally feel like they're playing God. That's ultimately what it is. It's about power. They feel like they're playing God. And it just makes sense. You keep hearing these stories over and over again. You're like, if they've been doing it since the Greeks and they've been doing it since the Romans, they're like, the higher you go up, if we're going to share power, then we want to have power over you. We want to be able to rape your land and really, literally rape you as a person and strip you of your dignity, right? And notice, like, even white supremacists, when they come into our spaces, what do? They try to be like trolls, because what they're hoping to do is engage with you in a way where they can strip away your dignity, but it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, they and we were talking about that the other day, Robbie. I think yesterday. My days are blurring together, but they immediately try to miseducate you. They try to say, "Hey, you're this, you're this, you're that," but it's a tactic, like you said, to strip away your defenses so they can control you. Brother Muko, talk to us.
Yeah, y'all definitely hitting the nail right on the coffin. And Locke was definitely the father of the Willie, I call it the myth of Willie Lynch. I definitely don't think that he was a real person, just like you said, that just came from Locke's manual. And the play word, justice, definitely liberty and freedom. See, if we're fighting for freedom, then we're not really fighting to figure out our lineage, where we're still in the confines of, their plan, which is racism, white supremacy. I know people hate to keep hearing that uh, word, but it is what it is. I just can't not say it. Um, but this was a whole plan that, just like the brother just said, just like Professor just said, when you're in power and you want to keep the power amongst the individuals that are of equal status, then you create what's called the buffer class. And see, this is where the parliament, the governments, and all this shit came into play. Because see, the Greeks and the Romans realized that, okay, well, for the ones that are elitists, and we have all the money and we just don't want to be bothered, we don't even want nobody to know who we are. Well, we got to get people to put on the front line. It's always going to take the attention away from us. And so, yeah, all of this is in cahoots, and that liberty thing, we definitely need to pay attention to those words because they are very important. Liberty, freedom. You should always ask, well, the freedom to do what, and what are you trying to liberate me from? You know. So yeah, I land there.
Very interesting and very true. Shallow.
Oh, I was just want to say another thing with these elitists and globalists and all this stuff. I was hearing about Bill Gates that he brought, I don't know, something in the medical industry having to do with those shots, and they switched the uh, that no, the flu shot up, and I was trying to tell people don't take no more shots. I don't care what it is because these people are really they you know what they trying to do. And yeah, it's all about that depopulation thing. And he's been part of that eugenics from his father, from Margaret Sanger on down. So yeah, he's on some crap, and I don't even see how he gets to even get into the medical industry when he's a computer geek. How are you buying up something in the medical industry to give shots to people? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you guys, if you can tell whoever, man, that don't take them shots, whatever they got going on. They talking about people get your flu shots. No, you can just get your
We already
immunity.
Well,
know
go
that
ahead.
it takes a
Go
while
ahead,
to
one.
develop a vaccination for some new thing. So they had a lot of problems explaining how they came up with the shot so fast.
Mm.
And then they said it was an emergency approval, and then they lied and said it wasn't. Like it's an emergency approval, but you're saying it's not now. So my doctor said, did you get the shot? And I said, no. He had on a mask. And I said, why do you have on a mask? If you got the shot and everything's great, then why are you all masked up? Yeah, why would I get a shot and still wear a mask? I'll just wear the mask and stay the hell out of Dodge.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense. One more thing I want to say. So they got, you guys know they got so many weapons of mass destruction. It's crazy. So the I got a friend. He was on special forces or whatever. I guess I don't know which one of these wars they were in, and the guys, they were sitting there. And he said, "Man, we train. I ask a couple of soldiers. They be like, man, I'm ready for this stuff, man." He said, "We train all the time." Like, man, I don't want that to happen. You know what I'm saying? People get messed up behind that, and but he was like, "Well, we train all day and we went out. We think we going to war, right? So we got our guns ready and everything." And next, I guess his captain or whatever, he was like, "Yeah, it's done." Came in there talking about it's done. He's like, "What you mean?" He was like, "They ready with their gear on and stuff." He was like, "Nah, don't even worry about it. They didn't launch some damn. It's not called this, but it was like a gay bomb." And they threw it over there. And next thing you know, they didn't have to do nothing to the enemies because they was over there hunching on each other. Man, crazy.
I've heard talks of that. I've heard echoes of that up in something like that. So that's real interesting. You never know. You never know. But one of these days, once I'm done looking through the paperwork to make sure I didn't sign any NDAs, those of you, some of you know, I was did a congressional study on COVID-19, 2021 through 2023, and it's a lot I need to tell y'all, but I need to make sure I didn't sign any NDAs first. I don't want to get sued. But I'm not going to disagree with anything anybody said in here. We're living in real interesting times, ladies and gentlemen.
And there is some virus going around because I know people who die from COVID, and there is an issue, and you can see people in Asia with the mask on permanently, like, you know, and they said, oh, they just keep it on because of the pollution, because of the SARS or whatever the issue was. And so I said, oh, they're just going to walk around like this? The pollution isn't going to go away. Where are they going to go? They're living somewhere where they can't breathe. And check out India. India is crazy polluted. Literally, you're outside for 5 minutes and you feel like you're covered in dirt. So I don't know what they're going to do
Wow.
to the, what kind of lungs are these people gonna have? They have massive amounts of people dying of lung disease in China. I don't know how many in India, but I know that in India, uh, I was I was always dusty, like my eyelashes had dirt on them.
Wow. That's crazy. My homeboy did some work over there. He did some brokerage of furniture over in and not Dubai. What's that place called in India, Delhi or whatever. And he said, man, he said you'll be walking down the street and like big ass crowd, and somebody will just get in the street and put on their pants and just do number two in the middle of the street.
Oh, I didn't see all that because I kind of stay away from when I know it's going to be like that. Yeah, Delhi would do that. New Delhi, Delhi, whatever they want to call it.
I didn't see anything that bad in Africa. I did see that people would let their children go outside in the middle of the yard in front of everybody and do that. And I was like, man, he not supposed to be doing that. But it wasn't no grown people doing that. But in Ghana, there was like open sewers in the middle of the like road. It was like just shit flowing in a canal, literally. I lost my appetite.
Hold on, hold on. You said where was that at?
In
Delhi.
Ghana,
Ghana. Oh
downtown,
man.
they have open sewer. You know how in America they'll have like a creek at an apartment complex, like a little creek or going, by your mailbox. In Ghana, downtown by the walkway, they had an open sewer, just shit flowing down just no covering.
This is what I'm saying. They keep trying to push Ghana as this, Mecca and it's all that, but it's just a facade because the infrastructure is still the infrastructure.
Right. Brother Muko, talk to us.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I had to put on my Bluetooth. Can y'all hear me?
I hear you, bro.
Okay. Well, I
Yes,
will
sir.
say that like when I was in South Africa and Johannesburg and places like that, and doing like my spiritual doing like my spiritual my spiritual journey and stuff, just learning about their culture over there. They do have a thing where, you might see them doing the number two outside or stuff like that. Well, in those countries, they believe in cleanliness, but they also believe and trust that when you have a bathroom or plumbing in your house, that's like the dirtiest place. So, in houses in Africa, they'll have what we'll look at as an outhouse, but they'll have their bathrooms where you actually do a defecate separate from their houses. You know what I'm saying? We'll look at it as, oh man, these third world countries, they don't know what they're doing, but what they're actually doing is separating they're keeping their houses and their homes as clean as they could possibly can. And then in some most of these countries in Africa, they don't even have plumbing. You know what I'm saying? So they're plumbing. This is why we see them doing those things like defecating in the middle of the street, pissing on the
Yeah, but
side
they
of the
can't.
road.
They have to have organized bathrooms, though. If they want to, if they believe that, which I believe it, that's a feng shui principle, where you keep the bathroom door closed and the bathroom is filthy and you don't want it around. We can't see the microorganisms coming out of the bathroom, so that's correct. But you still can't just squat in the street. You have to have, a modern outhouse, and that's what they need to have. They still need plumbing. People had plumbing in the Greco-Roman times. They need plumbing. You can't have turds sliding down the street on people. That causes diseases, and the white boy can't stay up from over there. And then he's just going to drag the diseases over here like he brought AIDS and chicken pox and everything else. He's a super spreader.
Right, right. Very, very fascinating. Yeah, it caught me off guard because I wasn't in a broke neighborhood. I was in a neighborhood called what's the name of that neighborhood? Osu. It was kind of a swanky little neighborhood, and just a shit canal going across the street down the road. Yep. The interesting topics. Anybody else want to come up? Back to the whole brainwash thing. I want to quickly touch on that. The Constitution, it's kind of related to the topic because we were talking about those of you just joined. Aristotle was a father of logic. Basically, we're identifying how educational system lies to us because Aristotle wasn't the father of logic. But Muko brought up a good point about words like justice and liberty being used were intentionally used to deceive us. The I did some research on the um, original philosophers used to create the Constitution of the United States. It was Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu, another Frenchman. But I go figure. I found out that they all were in a secret society. Every last one of them. And go figure. Um, Thomas Jefferson and the framers of the Constitution, they were all in a secret society. So, who's running this show, man? Is this all run from the shadows? you know,
Yes, it is.
I'm I'm just saying. Shiloh Joseph, talk to us.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that too. Yeah, they got some uh people in the background running this joint, and they all Satanists, and it's crazy. I wanted to ask if anybody knew if this was true, but they said like for them Hollywood actors and stuff, they have like a city under Los Angeles. It's on the timeline. It's like they really have like a city underneath Los Angeles. Um, they get to from A to Z quickly as possible. They ain't never stuck in traffic. None of that. They got a Starbucks down there where they everything's for free, And I was like, dang, what the heck is going on? But I seen one of them small caps coming up from New York from up underneath there. So I know they got them in New York, you know what I'm saying, up underneath ground, and it's like big, man, it look like big old mansions underneath there. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what the heck is going on? Yeah, but it's crazy. It's real crazy.
Some of that was kind of exposed last summer. If y'all remember when that wall collapsed in New York.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, and they're
I'm
real
a
arrogant about their movies too, because they showed a lot of this exposing underground cities and stuff in Resident Evil, and tried to make it, just a movie. But that has actually been going on for about a century and a half. And I would say New York. Just Professor just made that profound statement about that wall collapsing. They have had many incidents of walls collapsing and bridges just caving in, sinkholes. due to all of the digging and making these underground quote unquote towns and cities. So I don't think that's something that we should believe. It's definitely evidence of it, and just like we know how arrogant the white supremacists are. They're really arrogant about showing their work. So I would not doubt this for 1 second that what you're hearing is some truth to it.
Go ahead. Linda, can you hear me? Hey, Linda, can you hear me? Linda A. Wright.
Yes,
I got a couple questions before you begin. We got a little protocol on my page. First and foremost, what's your lineage?
I'm African American, black. I'm a black woman. That's what I call myself.
Okay, where are your parents from?
Well, my mother was born in Oklahoma, and my father was born in Texas.
Okay, all right. All right. What's on your mind?
No, what we are dealing with now is the Federalist Society that is running all of the courts now, and what you were talking about with those sororities and all of that stuff is still there. That's why with Justice Thomas and all of those guys going with these billionaires on these trips and all of that stuff, they bought and sold the American judicial system. It is broken completely. And now that the lawyers are operating in this system, you notice they don't have any that represent black people as a whole. And that's what concerns me greatly. If you can't have justice and the rule of law, then what do you have other than chaos?
Interesting. Now, Linda brought up the Federalist Society. I'm glad she did. For those of you who don't know, the Federalist, there were two main, when the country was being formed, two main, what do you call it, thought processes. It was a Federalist and the anti-Federalist. So what I'm about to say is going to make Thomas Jefferson look like a hero. Thomas Jefferson and his group were, I think, James Madison. I think it was Madison, but it was a group. Thomas Jefferson was the leader of the anti-Federalist. Now, the anti-federalists believe that the government the government needs to stay out of the affairs of the citizens of the United States of America. And the Federalists believe that government insight needs to be in everything. So ironically, the one framer, hold on, I'm gonna mute you right quick. The one framer of the Constitution who had black lineage or African lineage was Alexander Hamilton. He was a Federalist. He believed in government, complete government oversight in every part of the Americans' livelihood. But so the Federalist Society is kind of pro big government. And long story short, it does look like the Federalist Society is getting control over this country because government insight is going into everything. I'm sounding like like a right wing Republican, but yeah, that's one thing when I'm studying the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. It kind of is disturbing because I don't by any means view Thomas Jefferson as a hero. I think he was a pedophile. I know he was a pedophile, but I guess what they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. I think Thomas Jefferson was right with his views on Anti-Federalist society and the way the country should function. Diva, RCD Diva, RCD Diva One. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Talk to
How
us.
you doing? I didn't realize I pressed the
Hey.
button. But I
Oh,
really,
you're good.
I really enjoy you guys. I try to tune in as much as I can whenever you all are on. Y'all seem very witty, very smart, well spoken, well educated. So I just really enjoy listening to you guys. I didn't mean to press the button, but I enjoy listening to you guys.
No, it's okay, love. Thank you for joining
No
us. Thank you.
problem. Keep up the good job.
Now, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This space is not gonna be as long as it usually is. I didn't really go to sleep last night. Well, y'all know y'all were on the road with me. I appreciate y'all last night, though. I had a long trip from Memphis to Atlanta, and I started that space, and that trip seemed like it took me 30 minutes to get from Memphis to Atlanta. Like I was talking, y'all enjoyed myself so much that I looked up and I was in Atlanta. I was like, how did that happen? So, Brother Muko, talk to us.
Wow, wow. I'm mad that I missed that space. But I will say, just like you've mentioned, and just with the Federalists and the anti-Federalists, this was the beginning, and I say the kind of the bread and butter of white supremacy, with them creating two societies playing both sides of every argument. I just wanted to put that out there. We starting to see I'm starting to see a trend of when we put our intelligence together and we start running down all of the data that we have stored up in our brain computers. This is a habit that I'm starting to see of these white supremacists, like Neely Fuller Jr. mentions this a lot in his work about white supremacists playing both sides of the argument. But really, really now looking at it beyond that, I mean, they have a real serious track record of playing both sides of the argument just to get what they want to achieve accomplished every time, like without fail.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's real interesting. I don't know if y'all follow or heard of Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell was an esoteric scholar, passed not long ago. But Jordan said that years ago. Jordan said, I mean, this dude's deep as hell. And Jordan said, it's one bird. The United States is a bird. And on that bird, you have a right wing and you have a left wing. He said, but the bird, how many heads does the bird have? One. So it all feeds into the same thing. Yeah, the anti-federalists and Federalist Society worked together. They were all friends, they would Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton would, just kind of like the whole Republican Democrat thing, pretend like they were enemies, but they really were working towards the same goal. But Alexander Hamilton ended up losing his life because he helped in a campaign against Jefferson, and basically a suspected white supremacist challenged him in a secret society, challenged him to a duel and blew him away. And Alexander Hamilton said, "I'm not going to shoot you. That was a mistake." The white supremacist said, "I'm going to shoot you."
Hey, Professor,
Killed
you
him.
know where that scene came? You know where they replayed that scene at?
Where?
In the movie Gangs of New York. Remember when the butcher went up to the Greek, the Irishman, and he said, "Oh, I'm not gonna fight you, butcher. Let's just go in here and have a drink amongst men." And he turned his back on
Right.
the butcher, and the butcher threw an axe in his back. There goes the story of
Yeah,
Hamilton right there.
that was the story of Hamilton, and Hamilton had to drop. He had the first shot. He could have took him out, but he, being a nice Negro, got him killed. When we gonna learn, ladies and gentlemen? Anybody else want to contribute?
I just want to say one more last thing. Kindness doesn't kill. That's a myth, y'all. Kindness does not kill. So killing somebody with kindness, please, please, victims of racism, white supremacy, don't fall into the mind fuck. Kindness does not kill.
Dr. John Henry Clark said, "We invited the European to the table and we became the meal." Kindness has been a big part. The cat's not out of the bag yet. I'm not sure if it's kindness or naivete. I don't know. I was looking back upon the mistake made in Kemet of inviting the Asiatic men to do work. That's one thing, but then to say, you know what, I'm going to offer them women because, according to Dr. John Henry Clark, it was out of pity. Oh man, every man needs a woman. Give these men some women.
I have
But I thought, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have an insight on why we keep doing this. We have a
Why?
history of welcoming people in. We weren't in a position being enslaved of saying, oh no, I don't want to work with that person from Mali, or I don't want to work with this. We always invited people in, especially downtrodden people. So if somebody was poor and white, they got to be white boy in the neighborhood. They could be a
Right.
wigger, they could eat with you, they could do whatever. And it was safer. So if somebody was married to a white woman, it was safer for her to be in a black neighborhood than vice versa, because it was less violent, less hostility. So we've always been more welcoming than other groups. And we have to shake that. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad to be welcoming, but it's hurt us. I mean, we had a person to found Nation of Islam, and the person was not even Black American. It was a person who spoke Urdu. It was a person who wasn't Black, and he shaped the way that we think about our identity. And he sold silk. He did everything that a person of Asian descent does in Chicago. But we accepted him in because we have people that look like that, and it's like, fine. I don't feel that he did anything wrong per se, but I think it's very dangerous to have a foreigner come in and tell us how we should view ourselves. That's my complaint, that
It is
that a
dangerous.
foreigner can come in, immigrate into the country, and be in Chicago and start telling people how to view their blackness. And that's what we're fighting now. Um, like I said, I don't mind the product that Nation of Islam puts out, and I don't mind the advice on eating and carrying yourself and conducting yourself and the educational parts of it. But I just feel like I'm checking everyone's background.
Right, right. That's the mistake we made, is not checking paperwork and double checking the people we hang around and being too trusting. And like we said several stages ago, spaces ago, that slave trade may have had an effect on our self esteem. We got to check that too. Did that lower our self esteem to the fact that to the point where we think we need to be
Well, that's
hospitable to
how
people?
the liberal white woman spoke to me. She said, and that's how that foreign man who said, black people being mean to immigrants, they should know better. This is their perception that she told me this in these are her words. You of all people should not be against immigration. And I cornered her and I said,
Wow.
why is that? Well, you wanted people to not be racist. Well, you didn't stop being racist. Now what? You never stopped being racist. So I don't owe you anything for you stopping racism. Now, why else shouldn't I be against it? Well, everybody's no, they're not. We're not immigrants. She stopped herself because she knew she was about to look stupider than she already looked. We're not immigrants. So tell me again why I should have America's legs wide open to receive any person that you just happen to feel guilty about because your people do things to people overseas. That's not my guilt, that's your guilt. And they want to put it on us like we're junior white women. Oh, you got guilt by proxy. You've been living in America and you may have participated in activities that harm them. No, no, we didn't. You did and your men did.
Right, right, right. And very, very well said. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, anybody else want to have final words? We're gonna end a little early tonight because I'm gonna catch up on some sleep. I enjoyed y'all. Was Aristotle the father of logic? Hell no. Those of you who weren't here earlier, we proved that Aristotle was a plagiar. Well, he stole books from the Library of Alexandria. Um, and according to Dr. George M. James, Alexander was Aristotle was Alexander's secretary. So I'm gonna put a picture of his old lying ass in a jumbotron right quick. I want y'all to see this motherfucker. Hold on, let me put Alexander the Great. The Great. Look at this motherfucker right here. Would y'all, like my auntie used to say, would y'all just look at this? This is your Alexander the Great. Your your Aristotle, the multi genius right here. I saw a hand.
Yeah, that was my
Whose hand
hand.
was it?
That was mine.
Go ahead, Muko.
I just wanted to give my last words. I appreciate you, Sister Wani, Sister Nikki, everybody in the space for having the patience to keep to go over information like this. Um, I know this is a lot of information that a lot of individuals that are older than you guys and even older than me already know, and we tend to fall in the habit of not going over it again and again for the generations under us. See, because we got so much shit going on, and but we need to understand that the revising of the system of racism, white supremacy, has been going on since its inception. So right now, spaces like this are very valuable for us to understand. Because, see, having spaces like this gives us a better understanding of why we aren't doing, dumb things like voting for the lesser of two evils, or even having a clear understanding of this bird that has these two wings that's trying to make us feel or believe that it's two different birds. So I just
Mm-hmm.
appreciate these spaces and you bringing up these topics and these individuals such as Aristotle and Socrates, because look, they set the groundwork for what this generation now is going through. And see, this is what I always
Right.
talk about: the actions or the inactions of us directly affects a generation that we won't even know, we won't breathe on, we won't even get to set sight on them. Okay, so this is why spaces like this are very important, because these spaces affect my actions that affect my great 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 grandchildren directly, and I will not even get to meet them. All right, so I just appreciate y'all for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And for those of you who don't know, I contacted Wani and Nikki today in the middle of a lecture. I got my orders for the next section that they want me to teach in ancient world history, and they said they had Aristotle. It said the standard was teach Aristotle, and in parentheses it said Aristotle was a father of logic. And then I just heard skirt in my head. I was like, father of logic? What the fuck is that? They literally want me to teach these these young people this, that Aristotle was a father of logic. So I wanted to ask y'all, was he the father of logic? My hopes of this brief space tonight is that some young people hear this, or y'all, spread this word and the scholarship that we brought up tonight to younger people. So when they take a course, ancient world history, from a professor that doesn't look like me, that looks like the dominant society, who's so excited to teach, ooh, Aristotle's the father of logic, that they'll remember, no, the hell he ain't, and maybe challenge them in class in a very polite, professional way. Say, wait a minute, Dr. George M. James said he was a secretary. What do you think about that? To say it really
Are you
nicely.
allowed to, um, I guess, lead them to stuff that would let them find out he really wasn't all that?
I tell the truth. I'm just prepared to back it up with scholarship. Where it gets where it's touchy now is I'm at a PWI. That's really like today when we were going over the, it escaped my mind, what we were talking, the state constitutions, and we're talking about eminent domain taking people's stuff. And one of the little sisters said, "Oh, that's like what happened. Like, these kids are smart as hell. They're like, that's what happened in Lake Lanier." And I was like, "Show did." And when I popped the video, found a video talking about Lake Lanier, and it was portraying Lake Lanier like it only happened to. I don't even know if Caucasians were even in that town, but it was making it look like the whole town of Lake Lanier was full of Caucasian because it was showing the ghost. It was like Miss Such and Such died here, and it was a white lady with blue eyes. And Miss Such and Such died here, and she's rumored to have haunted. And Miss Such and Such died, and she's the lady of a lake, blonde hair, blue eye. And I was like, wow, this is misleading them. I don't know if any of this is true. It may all be false, but I know it's omitting the fact that that was a foundational Black American town that was flooded. Like, but I couldn't say anything because I'm a PWI, and I just got kind of stuck. I was like, how do I say? No, y'all, this is bullshit. This is a black town because my
Lady of
other
the Lake.
students.
Are they saying why she's haunting the lake?
They said that the lady, like, I forgot her name. I think it was bullshit, but they said she got killed on a road. And I was thinking to myself, why would she be walking on a road through a black town in the valley? I don't believe it.
Hmm.
If I find the documentary, I'll send it. It's on YouTube. I'm gonna send it to you, Wani. It was absolute hogwash. Like, it was shocking. I was like, no way. But this is the attack that's on our children's minds, just erasing us from our own history. It's just like microphone check. We can't even have the Lake Lanier tragedy. Can't have that. Noam Chomsky wrote a book called Manufacturing Consent. That's a very complicated book, very powerful book that shows the media apparatus and how it manufactures consent in our mind. Basically, it manufactures the media apparatus uses um, ignoring black people who get in trouble, not allowing sympathy for black people, for foundational black Americans, and allowing through the process of ignoring sympathy for foundational black Americans, and through the process of granting sympathy for similar issues to European Americans. It creates a sense of like a kind of consent in America for people to feel sorry for, to have sympathy and reverence for whites, and not have sympathy or reverence for black. It's systematic. It's a very complicated book, but it's so essential. Um, it's very powerful to us. Although it doesn't mention us, Noam is not really a friend of black people. Dr. Chomsky isn't. The fact pattern is relevant. But I saw that's exactly what was happening today when I watched that video. It was like manufacturing consent. It basically was saying, hey, people, don't feel sorry for black people, even though these group of black people were done wrong through eminent domain and murdered and killed, and they ghosts may or may not be haunting people to this day and killing about 20 people die a year on Lake Lanier. I didn't even know it was that much. And there's a resort there, you know, and people, Europeans get out there and start skiing and stuff and end up dead. Tariq kind of talked about that a year ago. But this video was manufacturing consent. This system is very clever. Clever. Zandil or Zandalay. We're gonna attempt this and see where this goes. Zandalay, or is it Zandil? Zandile. It says connecting.
Oh, I see it.
I'll give it a little bit more time. While it's connecting, did anybody have any questions? I just felt like I had to cover this subject just shortly today. Zandile, can you hear me? If it connects in 10 seconds, I'll drop her. That's 8, 7, 6, 5. Ah. Oh, well, she's back to listener. Delay it wouldn't bring you up. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I enjoyed y'all. I'm gonna get some rest. Oh, go ahead, Linda. You had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I wanted to say I'm appreciating what you were talking about, and have a good evening.
Oh yeah. I'll see y'all tomorrow with another topic. Peace out.